Hello everybody, this is Abby Normal and welcome back to Cupid, the short visual novel game about love, revenge and justice or retribution, whichever you go for. Rosa entered the room with a tray of pastries and a pot of tea. Her duties were finished and she was allowed a bit of free time. She thought of accompanying Catherine for today's piano lesson. Kath, do you want some tea? The girl didn't look her way. She continued to churn out the bitter, melancholic sound from her piano. Rosa sighed, her shoulders slumped in defeat. She placed the food on the table. She sat on the stool beside the piano, twiddling her thumbs while her friend continued to stew in her foul mood. Is that a new composition? It sounds nice. Nowadays you make a new piece every day. It's a shame they're all so sad. Catherine didn't reply to that, but when she spoke again her words were bitter. I saw them again. Those degenerate louts. No shame at all. Alright. Consenting damn adults and all that. At least have the decency to close the door. Sometimes I dare say that they want to get caught. When I walked in on them this morning, eating each other's faces, they had this look on them, like they were daring me to say something. We? Do you want my applause? Wait, it's like we, okay, or I think it's we. Do they want my applause? Very nice technique, sire. I very much like the way you swapped your spit with my sister. Great tongue action. Très marvelous. I can't speak French ever. And he even has the gall to speak to me. Be it here and put them on the table, Catherine. He even said, like I am a soft-headed giggle-mug of a maid. He wanted me to get annoyed. I just know it. Well, fair share I am. Catherine turned to the tea and pastries, stuffing the buttered bread into her mouth. Eat easy there. Damn things. These damn delicious things. She said the last part angrily, as if she blamed her troubles on the food's relish. Rosa giggled in spite of herself. Catherine wiped her mouth in mock anger. What are you laughing at, wench? It's almost comical to watch you eat when you're angry, Kath. You're like the giant monsters that attack defenceless towns in horror books. Titan! Oh, yeah? Catherine made tiny, sad squeals and picked up another piece of bread. No, please spare us! She adjusted her voice and boomed out a roar. The Catherine monster of the deep doesn't show mercy to anyone! She dropped it in her mouth and chewed savagely. Annihilation is delicious with tea. The two girls giggled. Catherine's rare smile turned into a rueful laugh. And soon, Rosa felt her mood turning sombre again. What happened anyway? Weren't you annoyed by it too? Sister has changed ever since she started helping in the chateau. Now it's all gilly this, gilly that. As if she wasn't already married. She doesn't even care that people are talking behind her back. I'm tired of running around picking fights with gossipers. She hasn't even visited home for a long time. Father misses her a lot. He always asks about her. Father had worked so hard all these years just to give us a comfortable life. Now he is sick and all she cares about is that damn dastardly Marquis. Rosa shrugged. I am a little bit annoyed, but I guess I've gotten used to it. Their lives are their own, Kath. She didn't dare divulge more than to Catherine, but it was partially true. I like Gilly. He is a nice friend, but I love my sister. they want to stay together, then why not fix this and have at it? But what irritates me to my dad's Snatch is, Jesus Christ, is the way they are with each other. Okay, I don't know if they use that. I've never heard that language used before from a game, but I don't know if a lot of you know this, but the Snatch is basically another term for vagina. So, well, okay. Oh, yeah, no, you see, that's what, yeah, see? Catherine recently found the use of explicits enduring in her speech. Rosa hoped it was a phase. They are miserable. Any half-wit can see that. Yes. I've told Emily time and again to smarten up. She's hurting a lot of people, including herself. But as if she would listen to her 16-year-old brat of a sister. Even Gilly is depressed, I can tell. Remember when he used to come and visit us here to have tea? Or when we used to have picnics in the afternoon? We used to run around chasing rodents in the garden. You ran around. We just watched you get dirty, actually. That is very true, you nitheads. Back then it used to be fun visiting the chateau. Nowadays we barely even see him. He just stays in his bureau all day brooding. Is it something adults subject themselves to, like a torture ritual? I really don't understand why two people who are clearly unhappy keep at it. Rosa did understand. At least some part of her did. She couldn't exactly explain how pain and love worked. All she knew was that it had something to do with an absurd, obsessive amount of hope. She felt Mother tugging at her mind. She loved Mother so much. Living with Paredes gave her ample comparison to her former life. She had finally accepted that Mother was cruel. And yet Mother still gave her love and kept her from wanting. Was that crazy? Perhaps it was the only love she needed. Perhaps it was what she deserved. No, okay. Quick intermission, like little break here. Guys, when someone's... It's in her mind, I know, but she got it from somewhere that her mother would speak to her like this. That her own parent literally spoke to her like she was stupid, like it was all her fault. And it's really not. And that's abuse. Love and abuse do not go together. If you love someone, you don't do that to them. If a mother loved her child, she would not abuse them in such a way to make them feel that way, to make them feel that this is what they deserve. That is awful. Okay, just thought I'd put that in. Jesus. Perhaps it was what she deserved. Rosa shook the thoughts off her mind and just shrugged. I know you are just worried about your sister Kath, but they will figure it out. Humans learn. Look at you, all profound and such. You read any good books lately? Just the riveting account of the ugly duckling and Baa Black Sheep. Ah, the classics. I don't know how you put up with it, though. I hate reading words. In order to write, I have to learn how to read first. I want to write. Why would you want to do a dastardly thing like writing? Why would you want to hit some crazy strings until your fingers bleed? Oh. The two friends laughed again. I want to remember things. I want to write them down. But most of all, I want to feel the way you do when you play the piano, Kath. Oh? The way you look when you play. Your passion and bliss in musical form. It feels like love, like magic. You inspire me to do something fulfilling and grand. Well, I'm sure you will. Hey, why not write a play one day? Oh? Yeah, let's do it. You write an amazing play, and I shall provide the music. Or travel around the country and perform. We'll make lots and lots of money and gain lots of followers. We shall be known as the Parody Parade Caravan of Wonders. Parody Parade? Are you sure? Puns are the best. Trust me. Nope. Nope. I'm stopping you right there, baby. Nope. That sounds darn batty, Kathy. Ah! From this day forward, nobody is allowed to call me Kathy ever again. I thought that was my knock at my door. I was like, I'm alone. Oh shit. The sound of a knock interrupted their giggles. Catherine, it's me. I need to discuss something very important with you. Frustrated, Catherine pouted at the sound of her sister's voice. She turned back to her piano and began to pound a sarcastically happy tune. Rosa stood up to open the door. Hello, Rosa. Madame? She had seen little of the older Parody sister recently, and it astounded her how old she had begun to look. Her once radiant face looked tired and harrowed, almost crone-like, and under her eyes hung huge bags. And yet she still looked quite fine, full of pride and pomp. There was extra rouge on her cheeks, and her demeanour was elegant. It was as if pride was her only source of nourishment these days. Do you mind giving Catherine and me a moment of privacy? Rosa gave a small bow. Of course not, madame. Rosa gathered her nursery books and squeezed Catherine's shoulder before stepping out of the room. Rosa entered the quiet room of the library. She was about to approach the table when she noticed Gilly already occupying a seat. He was writing something in a book, somewhat immersed in the activity. Rosa stopped dead in her tracks. Ah, I should have saved. Oh, okay, there you go. Right, let's save. Turn. Okay, leave now while he's not looking, child. Just go and ignore him. He probably knows. He probably already knows she's in there, so there's no point in leaving. But it's rude to ignore him. But then I am talking like the bitch mother I am. Oh. Sorry. There you go. Let's just ignore him. Why are you so nervous anyway? Just ignore him. He doesn't seem to notice you. Unfortunately, Gilly lifted his head and saw her by the door. Oh. Hello, Rosa. Rosa took a step back. Maybe it was best to walk away as if this were a mistake. But wouldn't that be rude? He had already seen her after all. But she had never been alone with him. It was just too awkward. Oh, why not just go in? It was going to be fine. They had conversed normally before. Yet, that was because Catherine had been around to disperse her awkwardness. Oh, now I look like an idiot. Gilly watched her pace in front of the door in amusement. And Rosa decided to go in. She had already embarrassed herself enough anyway. There was little left to lose. Besides, there was nowhere else to go in this big house. She had already gotten lost in its hallways, much to the annoyance of the maitre d'. But the library was her favourite place. My favourite place too! If she stayed quietly in one corner, Rosa was sure they wouldn't bother each other. She took a seat at the farthest corner of the table and opened her book. Oh no, he's actually standing up and walking over. Oh, no, you won't mind, just sit up there while I sit over here. But Gilly was already beside her, peeking at what she was reading. A cold sweat spread on her scalp. Rosa, that book. Rosa began to chatter nervously. I know, it's a children's book, sire. I'm teaching myself to read. I know most commoners don't really bother, but I want to learn. So please don't laugh or mock me. Gilly pointed to the book. It is upside down. Rosa stared at it. The ducks in the picture had their feet up in the air. Rosa squirmed, feeling the heat on her cheeks. She couldn't think of anything more embarrassing. Oh, sorry. Gilly's face lost its cheer. What do you need my forgiveness for? And Rosa looked up at Gilly. His eyes lacked the gentle glint they usually had. It was such a subtle change, something felt rather than observed. She thought he would reprimand her further. His face certainly looked like it. Instead, he sat down beside Rosa, drumming his fingers on his cheek while he watched her wordlessly. Well, weren't you going to read? Don't watch someone when they're reading, that's really creepy. What was wrong with him today? He didn't seem like himself. Had he eaten something bad? The aura he exuded was not his usual friendly warmth. Yet it wasn't particularly wicked. The look on his face just read, slightly and eternally miffed. I like it. Rosa turned the book upright and read the words out loud. That is the U with the short sound. It is pronounced like this. Gilly made the sound, his face still in his lazy stare. Rosa nodded and continued. Her nerves were frazzled, but she was actually at ease in his presence. She felt like a child being taught by their parent. The parent was strict, but still caring. And the child was jumpy, but eager to learn and please. Most of all, he would not hurt her for her mistakes. Rosa was almost sure. Their bed lived. The past tense of live. Why do we change it? It is a rule of grammar that... Grammar? Gilly narrowed his eyes at her. Do you even know your alphabet? Rosa shook her head. You should start there. Gilly rose from the chair and disappeared amongst the shelves. He left behind an old thick book covered in green felt. This was what he had been writing in earlier. It looked tattered and worn. The pages laid flat on its sides so the book didn't close properly. Rosa reached out to peek at the cover when... You are not to touch that! Rosa's whole body froze at the sound of Gilly's warning. Gilly's stare followed her even as she whispered numerous apologies under her breath. I'm sorry. Gilly just rolled his eyes. You're always seeking forgiveness for everything. Am I? I'm so... His hand struck the table in front of Rosa. Steady. In the quiet library, the sound rang uncomfortably in her ear. When she looked up, Gilly's face was looming severely above hers. He moved closer, his eyes fixed on her intensely. So he's like this close. He's really close to the mic. Rosa's mouth hung open. She struggled to say something, but her wits were like the burning ends of a matchstick. Before she could compose herself, she felt Gilly's hand lift her chin. Rosa's heart thumped wildly inside her chest. Please, don't. Not you too. She felt his breath on her face, and her heart sank into despair. Mother's voice resounded in her head. Save it before Mother says anything stupid. I'm stupid. In the end, they are all the same. He is like everyone else. She shut her eye and prepared herself for the worst, like she always did when... Then she felt her face being turned from side to side. She opened her eye to see Gilly studying her face like a textbook. You are a fairly attractive girl. Why do you carry yourself as if it is a slight? He lifted the hair that hid her damaged eye. Rosa clenched her teeth. Is it because you were hurt before? He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was stating the sky was blue. Rosa recoiled from his touch. No, I did that to myself. I wasn't talking about your eye. He placed... he knows. He placed the book on the table. It was a thin pamphlet filled with letters. There were lines on the book that instructed the user to trace letters with their quill. Rosa wanted to focus on it, but she could feel the truth in the Marquis's words stinging her. It was the way you went limp when I touched you. Next time I advise you to fight back. If you don't want to be touched, then you don't have to be. Oh, Gilly! Do you understand this? Oh, honey! But I am weak. No, Rosa, you're not weak, honey. Says who? His eyes were humourless. The world cares not for people who think of themselves as victims, Rosa. If you need power, then be powerful. To have it, it is necessary to crush things along the way. Rosa flinched under the weight of his stare. She realised that the polite and courteous Gilly was but a facet? I don't know my words. It was still him, but it was nothing but an oil portrait, an artwork of his devising. Synthetic, aloof, and irrelevant. It couldn't capture his essence in a few human strokes. Suddenly, Rosa realised he was powerful. "Who are you?" She caught herself saying it aloud. "You are not Gilly." And yet, he spoke to her as if she knew what it was like to hurt and to fear. If you don't start acting like you own yourself, then people will not hesitate to take everything. He laid out the rest of the books he had bought. One was an activity book for children. It had a picture of a child holding an apple with an arrow stuck in it. Another was a book of limericks. The other two were thicker books that intimidated her. She would come to know them as Hamlet and Paradise Lost. Oh, good books, good books. But the one that caught her eye was an ornately designed book. It had a beautiful red jacket with delicate gold trimmings lining the corners. Is it Labyrinth? Oh, the gods and goddesses of Roman mythology. This would be her favourite book, her treasure, and she knew it like the love at first sight. "These books are yours." Oh! He gives a book. I love him. "Take them with you. Read the thin ones first, and then gradually build your vocabulary with the thicker ones." I'm going to sneeze. Oh God! Pause the game. Oh! 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 And that, I had to pause. I had to sneeze. It didn't come. Oh! Anyway, read the thin ones first, and then gradually build your vocabulary with the thicker ones. Rosa ran her hands over the skin of the red book. She opened the cover gingerly, as if carefully unwrapping a present. "Thank you." "No thanks needed. I simply showed you some books from a portion of the library you are unaware of." "You're still so generous, even if you are like this." "Like what?" "That." "What?" Somewhat irritable." "Whoa." Gilly didn't reply, leaving an awkward silence lingering between them. Then he gave a giant laugh that made Rosa jump out of her skin. "I do look damn irritable, don't I?" "Why? Is it because of Emily?" Gilly's eyes drifted away. "No. I've always been. You've just pointed it out." "But you are not usually like this, especially with Catherine and the townspeople." "I find it easy to adapt to people, especially to the ones I like." Gilly looked at Rosa as if he had just become aware of her presence. "Makes me wonder why I'm so stern with you." "I'm sorry." Rosa shook her head. "I somehow prefer this side of you." Gilly cocked his head to the side. He brought out the green book that Rosa noticed earlier. "This is called a journal. When you learn to write, start one." "What is it?" "Something you can use to remember yourself when you've forgotten." "Does it work?" "It used to. Nowadays, not anymore." "Oh." "The act itself is the only thing I remember. Now, let's start with your vowels." A scream pierced the halls of the chateau. It was Catherine. "Oh!" Gilly sprinted to the door with Rosa not far behind. "What's wrong? What's happening? What's up?" "Catherine? Emily? Catherine? Emily? Anyone? I haven't clicked. Why? What's happening? Why is my screen black?" Back in the piano room, Catherine took a shaky step towards her sister. She wasn't moving at all. Oh! I didn't. It was an accident. Emily." She was overcome with the urge to approach her sister and shake her awake. Make sure she was okay, but it was a nasty fall. "Emily!" Catherine saw the way her sister's head snapped back as it collided with the sharp corner of the piano. Oh, she watched it all like a series of photographs in her head. She had to check on her, but her feet refused to move. Instead, she began to retreat into a corner. She didn't even notice her legs were moving until her forehead touched the wall. She didn't want to turn around. Oh, her sister was on the floor, Her eyes were still open, unblinking. It was an accident. It was nothing but an accident. Was it? Oh no, she's got her own voice. She has a voice in her head. She pushed fast. She got really scary. She strangled me. What? That's absurd. Are you sure? Would she do that? I think she did. Catherine touched her throat. It felt fine. That Perrily girl. Emily, is it? She really believes just because the Marquis took her in that he's interested in her? Well, she's obsessed with the master. And the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Wasn't her mother a bit, you know, not right in the head? It probably runs in the family. Emily had looked mad. Her eyes had burned with a malice for her as she closed her fingers around Catherine's neck. But she couldn't remember if that had really happened. Sister was always kind to her. She would never, ever hurt her, even when they got into fights. Sister loved her. Oh, Catherine, honey. Am I turning mad? I have the blood of a mad woman. Am I going to end up like her? I only told her the truth. Gilly doesn't care for her. And she doesn't even care for him that much either. It was all just a child in their relationship. And so it's trying to make everyone else miserable too. But she called me jealous and a bitch. She's never called me a bitch. She said they decided to send me away. My lessons sent home. The piano replaced. It was for my own good, she said. I don't have to travel here all the time. I can concentrate on my other endeavours. I can make new friends. But I know she just doesn't want me near the chateau or Gilly. She hates it when I catch her with him. Perhaps this morning was the last straw. She hates it, but she also smirks at me when I see them, like she basks in it. I think I might hate her. Catherine's thoughts ran through her mind like a storm. They poured out of her aimlessly. I wonder if the piano is broken. Am I going to pay for it? What will become of us without Sister's wages? What of Father's medicine? What of my dreams? Sister can't be dead. Sister can't be dead. Catherine brought her fingers to her lips and nibbled her thumb. She didn't notice this. Her mind was preoccupied. She was in the corner of the wall, biting her fingers. It was a tiny comfort in a rapidly collapsing world. Ugh. Gilly opened the door and found Emily lying on the floor. An ugly gash broke the skin of her forehead. Facing the wall was Catherine, shivering like a leaf and viciously devouring one of her fingernails. He approached her cautiously. Catherine? Rosa was out of breath, but was still able to let out a gasp at the scene. Emily's lifeless eyes stared up at nothing while Catherine pressed herself into a corner. What had happened after she had left? Rosa, will you call for help, please? See that someone checks on Emily. Rosa did as he was told, but what she really wanted to do was hug Catherine herself. Gilly took a small step towards her. He called out her name slowly, coaxingly. Catherine turned her head. Her thumb was still on her lower lip. It was an accident. I swear. Of course it was, Catherine. Of course it was. She pushed me first. She wanted me sent away. She wanted me gone. You can tell me about it later. Shh. Let me talk. Let me take you away from this room. Oh, what have I done? Catherine fell to her knees and wept. Large sobs sucked the air out of her. She felt like drowning, trying to keep herself afloat in between sobs. Every exhale was a squeezing pain in her lungs. She felt Gilly's arms wrap around her. What have I done? What have I done? You didn't do anything, ma chérie. This was not your fault. There was a bitter bulge building up in her throat, and she felt no amount of crying could push it back down. What did you? What? Sister. I'm scared. Gilly's arms wound tighter around her, and she clutched onto his warmth in the vast sea of fear. You don't have to be. I will always be by your side. Catherine, I will take care of you and your father, all right? You don't have to worry about your future. Her tears soaked through his shirt, but the squeezing in her chest felt less painful. I just do you care about me? Gilly's brows furrowed as if confused that she even asked. I just do. It was a boldly stated fact, as if painfully obvious. So Catherine was a fool for not knowing it. It made Catherine's heart expand in her ribs. When she looked back, she recalled this moment as the moment. Oh, she fell in love with him. Oh, that's why. The look in his eyes was reassuring and strong. She wasn't alone. She was going to be all right. Let's get you away from here. He supported her arms and stood her up, careful to block the view of her sister from her eyes. He led her to the door. Catherine hated how fast her relief came. She was still drenched in sorrow at her sister's death. Her father would not take well to the news, especially in his health. But she was all right, and she hated it. Rosa was with her. She didn't have to leave her piano, her dreams, him. Nothing had to change. Most importantly, she hated the voice that came whispering in her head over and over again. Thank goodness she's dead. Thank goodness. Jesus Christ. Yeah. And I'm actually going to end it there, guys, because it's 3:15 AM, it's late, there's a lot to put on me, and now there's a lot more to put on me, and Jesus Christ, I'm like a nervous wreck for Catherine. I'm like, I know what happens, I know exactly what happens, I know what happens to her and Rosa, and oh god, I shouldn't map like that. Anyway, as I was saying, I'll end it there. I am loving this little visual novel. Makers of the game, you've done a beautiful job. I'll see you guys in the next part of Cupid. Bye bye.